Hey everyone, I wanted to send this message to preview one of the things that's going to be happening on today's Luminary Mastermind stream conversation at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Now, for those of you not in the Luminary course, just check this out. This is very, very important information that we're initially seeding within the Luminary course context, the Mastermind context, and we're going to be going forward on it because it's so important. So I want to share this document with you, which is the most powerful summary of how, on the economic and financial side, the massive bribe has facilitated the scamdemic. Okay, it's very, very critical. I can't say enough on how critical it is that we comprehend that this is all about money. It's all about business. The reason why it is still happening is because there are trillions of funds that are getting dispersed to all of the gatekeepers. Now, for the first time, because of researchers like Mandy Jacob, who is in the live stream in the mastermind today at 4 p.m., and others like AJ DePriest, who was recently on the Del Bigtree show Highwire, we now have some actual evidence and numbers of exactly how much, and you can look it up. You can find out how much COVID money is being used to bribe the officials and specifically the school boards and schools in your area. So let's go. Let's do this. This is going to be talked about again, one of the topics later today. So please, if you're in the Luminary Mastermind, you're going to want to tune in for that. It's going to be very, very key. So here's a 5-page document by AJ DePriest of the TN Liberty Network. Okay, so this is going to be, you're going to be hearing more and more about this. And here we go with a primer in federal COVID relief funds to schools. This is presented in timeline fashion to illustrate how we got to the point where the federal government tricked our state governments into selling our kids to them for the price of cheap Chinese-made masks and dangerous investigational COVID shots. Okay, so this is the money trail. Follow the money. This is the crime, essentially, on the financial side of things. U.S. school board meetings are the new battleground for medical freedom. Prior to the COVID pandemic, parents rarely doubted the intentions of government-run schools regarding their children's health. It turns out they should have. Okay, and I'm going to put a link to the document. It's in our Dropbox. If you're in the Luminary Mastermind, it's in week 5, and I'll just put a link. We'll just share it openly here with our entire community. It is time. I'll just kind of read bits and pieces, but read the whole thing. It'll take 5 minutes. It's extremely powerful. It is time for every parent and every taxpayer to understand that school boards have no teeth. School boards are powerless over what is happening in America's government indoctrination camps. They know how cruel it is. Okay, every school board has been hearing from parents. They know how cruel it is to mask, isolate, quarantine, test most of them, I would say, and contact trace kids, all in the name of health and safety. They know the science, and they at least have been told the science behind masking children. They know that the science has crumbled, like Anthony Fauci's credibility. If COVID accomplished anything in the past 2 years, it opened our eyes to the stark reality that our government education system is a bloated bureaucratic babysitter with no accountability and no transparency. Okay, here's the real story of why COVID mandates are hurting children and destroying what little faith we have left in the U.S. public school system. Okay, in 27 March 2020, okay, there's ESSER funds and there's GEAR funds. The ESSER funds stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, ESSER. The GEAR funds, that stands for Governor's Emergency Education Relief. We'll see exactly how much these funds have been allocated here on this page and in the graph that follows. So these came from the CARES Act, which was already written in advance, March 2020. We're going to set aside $2.3 trillion, and part of that is to pay off, to bribe the entire school system at every level and make it conditional that they only get the funds if they follow the government mandates and all of the other BS. Okay, so 3-layer shroud called the ESSER Fund to support K-12 school reopenings and pandemic recovery. ESSER is the most money ever given to public education, 11 times more than annual Title I spending, 5 times more than total federal K-12 spending in 2019-2020. So ESSER 1, Phase 1, and you can read about it here, 13.2 billion, and then the gear, 2.95 billion, governor's emergency educational relief fund. And it just increased, it escalated. Now, it's very important we see this requirements language, so compliance requirements language, and now this is throughout this. So basically, they're laying the foundation here that they only get the funds if they comply. This is why you go talk to your elected reps or your school board or teachers or principals, and they don't want to hear you because they're bound by money. Like literally, this thing, that's what's driving this whole thing. ESSER 2 allocated on December 27, 2020. And let's see. And CRRSA in December 2020, Donald Trump signed the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, expanding COVID relief funding and an additional $900 billion. The CRRSA Act gave K through 12 schools another $54.3 billion under ESSER 2 funds and $4 billion in Gear 2 funds. So this is only education. These are funds for only the schools. This isn't counting other government sectors and other bribes. This brought total ESSER funds to $67 billion. It released a Department of Education released this handbook for states on February 12, 2021. And then the ARP Act was signed into law by Joe Biden on March 11, 2021. Another $1.9 trillion economic stimulus bill. You guys, this is the reason. All of this nonsense of creating money from nothing is the reason why we're paying, 50% more than for goods and services than we did just several years ago. This is the cause of inflation. This is what happened in the Weimar Republic and Germany in history. Everybody knows that when you print money out of nothing, cost of everything goes up, and it's stealing. It's stealing from everyone. ESSER 3 on March 24 of last year. This is the biggest one now. By spring 2021, all ESSER funds were to be rewarded, and any unused ESSER funds to be refunded to the Department of Education for reallocation. Okay, now, interim final requirements. This is the stick that AJ calls. So basically, they say that they only get the money. Let's read this here. The requirement clarifies that a local educational agency plan must include how it will maintain the health and safety of students, educators, and other school and LEA staff, and the extent to which it has adopted policies, and a description of any such policies on each of the CDC's safety recommendations, including, so recommendations, but they only get it if they follow the CDC's recommendations, including universal and correct wearing of masks, modifying facilities to allow for physical distancing, hand washing and respiratory etiquette, cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, including improving ventilation, contact tracing, isolation, quarantine, diagnostic and screen testing, efforts to provide vaccinations to school communities. Efforts. Appropriate accommodations for children with disabilities and coordination with state and local health officials. Now, here's the numbers. Okay. CARES Act, within the CARES Act, which was $2.3 trillion created out of nothing, that was written in advance of the pandemic, the actual pandemic, 13.2 billion originally went to schools, and then another 54.3 billion, and then another 122 billion in March 2021. So the total ESSER spending, just the education spending, K through 12, to bribe the whole system in this country is 189.5 billion. This is way more than the stimulus funds from 2009, the ERA funds. Now read this. Now that we know the sleep-inducing details of how fast and loose our government behaves with our tax dollars, let's connect the dots between the most money ever doled out to schools by the federal government and the real issue, our children's health, and why schools continue to push COVID mandates as if COVID is a life-threatening illness that can only be assuaged with draconian measures like masks and quarantines. Have we seen the tip of the iceberg, or is there something worse under the surface? So think about this. If COVID was such a deadly disease that cheap surgical masks made in China are the only way to keep kids and schools safe, why is there not a single OSHA-related or regulated hazardous waste disposal bin anywhere in this whole thing? Why aren't kids and teachers required to change their masks and dispose of them per OSHA requirements for an hour and a half? Why aren't hazmat bins being collected if all of this is real? It's not about health. It's not real. It's compliance, and it's communism. It's getting changing completely the value system into compliance, and what it's doing to our kids is absolutely criminal. The answer is simple. COVID is not deadly, especially to children. School boards know it. Our mayors and governors know it. Our Department of Education know it. ESSER and GEAR funds are the carrot for schools to collect millions in COVID relief money, but these funds also carry a very big stick. They have to comply to get the money. And all 50 states are holding our kids ransom for money. Okay? So we're going to be following this through and going deeper on this. Look at this. This is another document that's in the Luminary Mastermind Dropbox for week 5. This is just for California. This data is available for all states. Look at this. This is just ESSER 3 just for California. This is only the third phase of bribery funding for the education system, COVID money, and it's just for California. I looked at this a short time ago. Our friend Mike Winner, he's in Del Norte County, and for example, the schools there are getting $9.6 million. It's a small county, right? Look at all these lines, hundreds and hundreds of lines of payoffs here, and only 3 to Del Norte. But 9.6 million just to the schools, and only if they follow the CDC recommendations. Okay, and if you go down to the bottom here, we see that just for the ESSER 3, just for the third phase, the total amount, look, I have to make it wider to even show that number, is $9.4 billion in California to schools. So there we go. We're going to dive into this. We're learning how to combine activism and love, right? Being and doing. So many overlaps of consciousness in action are happening. New paradigms. We're being challenged at a fundamental level. And, you know, like many of you, it's just been super, super intense. Things are dissolving and kind of fragmenting on the outside. We're being called to the inner work, and at the same time, we're being called to speak the truth and to say no to what is causing harm egregiously to us, our communities, and our kids. So we invite you again to this conversation. Share that information, share those links, get involved on this whole accountability level, because this is just the reason why I'm actually really excited about this. It's not because just knowing this and then, oh, look at what they're doing. It's because we are learning individually and as a community powerful mechanisms to hold accountable those actors that are causing harm. And this, knowing how much all of these agencies and the individual men and women, and that's important, as men and women, right? Holding them accountable as men and women, knowing how much they're getting paid to do these acts or to toe the line. This is a powerful point of leverage, along with things like notices of liability, with things like going after bonds, insurance bonds. We're seeing this more and more. It's like organizations have figured this out, and we're going to continue this conversation. Risk management, liability, insurance. This is starting to cause direct results in cities, counties, school boards, and even states now, and even entire countries, right? Saying we're not going to do it anymore. The reason why they're not going to do it anymore is because the people are implementing actual measures of heart-centered, truth-centered, love-centered liability to say, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And I'm going to hold this mirror up to you and show you what you're doing. And that's my boundary. So no more. So we invite you to the Luminary call this afternoon, and love you guys. Share this video if you find it helpful. Be part of the chat. Would love to know your feedback as we go forward. Thanks. Peace.